everyone. Welcome back to our podcast, No More Secrets. As always, I'm your niece, Katie Albrecht.
And I'm your aunt, Mary Albrecht. And today we are actually going to be talking about family dinner dynamics. And it's just going to be the first part of maybe a couple of episodes, if not three. And we have an idea of where we want to go with that. But before we get into that, we thought that maybe we would just touch base with how we're doing because, you know, Katie and I personally, how we're doing because Halloween is coming up. And last year we did... This weekend, I hear. It's usually I also hear it's an election year.
Oh, crazy.
I didn't know that.
I had no idea. Yeah.
And, you know, it's a pretty obvious time of year, you know, with Halloween and everything. So, and Katie showed up in a pumpkin outfit with this funny little felt hat with a stem.
I'm recording with it on.
Yeah, and so you'll see that in a picture. But we thought back to our episode on Halloween last year, and that was several in already to our first season, but it was kind of a more concrete one because we decided to talk about the holiday itself. And it made Katie realize, first of all, that, you know, how far she's come in a year. So we thought, well, let's both talk about how far we've come since we've been doing this podcast. So
right.
You want to start with the Halloween scenario?
Yeah. So if you guys remember from last year, we talked about the psychology of Halloween, but I think it more so focused on this, like the serial killers and the horror part of it and just like all the spooky things. And we were kind of like, why are humans so into this kind of thing, you know? And one of the things that I personally think about with Halloween was Michael Myers from the movie Halloween. And that, as a kid, if you guys, I can give you a little bit of like a recap. When I was a kid, I was pretty traumatized from that movie because my dad made me watch it when I was really young.
Like three.
And I used to be afraid of dark closets because I thought the boogeyman / Michael Myers was in there. I used to be afraid to walk in a dark house, like anything kind of dark, because I just assumed there was a serial killer lurking in the shadows.
What about shower curtains?
Oh yeah, I used to pull back the shower curtains big time.
Like
yeah,
Psycho.
Look in the back seat of a car,
of
a dark car, like all sort. You know, you guys know all the angles. You know, of
look out the window
movies.
From the second floor and see that face staring up at you.
Oh my gosh! I just got okay. This is so funny. I was going to talk about how like I'm doing so good, and then you say that, and that visual just like brought me back.
That creeps me out. I even saw Halloween, that movie, back when I was a kid.
When they're staring in the window. Yeah, I used to be scared of windows too. Ooh. Yeah, you give me chills just for a second.
But she is doing way better.
But I'm doing so much better. Okay, but seriously, that was a spooky visual. But I've noticed a growth in myself in this past year, and I think it has a lot to do with talking on this podcast and just talking in general in my life, because we're not only just talking publicly to you guys, we actually are having more open conversations and being more real with the traumas and problems of our life, because we do this for a reason. We're not just talking at you guys. We're doing this so that we can heal, so that other people that are listening can heal. And I feel like for myself, I've seen a lot of growth in that just because I've been talking about it more. I've been kind of facing and acknowledging the fact that I used to be really fearful of dark shadows and stuff. And I'm not perfect. Like I said, Mary just said one line and I actually got like a shudder up and down my spine.
Me too.
But my day-to-day, I'm not scared of dark shadows. I don't really check the back seat anymore. I don't expect, you know, a white mask going to be staring at me from outside the window. You know, it's gotten a lot better.
You had mentioned that you had a whole routine before you even would get into bed. You know, like 20 minutes and whatever. And Matt would be like, "Are you coming to bed?" You know, because it took you a while. Is that still in place or?
Not in that regard. I mean, I still do. He still says I take forever to come to bed because I have like a skincare routine and all that stuff, you know.
Oh, well,
you
that's
girls
different. That's not checking closets.
That's not checking closets. No, I don't. Like I can fall asleep and have the closet door open So before, it was like I didn't like looking into a dark closet because I just would visualize. Exactly.
I'm getting creeped out now, though.
Exactly. I would visualize like Michael Myers standing there, and like it was a real trauma. Like this sounds like a goofy thing, but I actually like could not do that. But now I found that I'm more comfortable with that. I can have it open. I'll sometimes close the closet door if it's like temperature controlled because it's a bigger closet. I don't want like cooler air going in there. I want it to stay in the room. But like it's not because I'm scared of what's in there. So I think I've grown a lot in that regard.
Yeah, and I think I had read that excerpt from the book The Body Keeps the Score that talked about how you get past PTSD or just really bad experiences is by consistently having similar events take place that directly contradict the trauma. Okay. So by constantly facing the closet and facing the outside and facing the back seat, you've over time, because you have to be aware of it, that you're doing this, over time it starts to soften the reaction because you're actually directly contradicting it with the same kind of habit, but it comes with a good outcome.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. So another thing that I've been like consciously doing is walking through the house without lights on. So it's like right before bed.
Okay.
I used to just every single hallway, like light goes on and then I get to the other end of it, light goes off, turn on the next light.
Really?
I used to do that stuff.
Okay.
But now I've been like actively trying to just be okay with walking in the dark because it's my place and I should I know that I should feel comfortable in a place that I trust and like.
So you're consciously choosing to directly contradict the trauma with a similar action but a better outcome.
Yeah. And nothing's happened to me, so
yeah,
there's been no serial killers.
so far it's working, yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted to share that little update just because Halloween is coming up in a couple days here from the release of this episode, and talking. I think it's a good reminder that talking about your problems and actively trying to fix your problems, is overall a good thing and
makes you definitely aware of them on a more regular basis, like as opposed to just having them all stuffed down. They're kind of more in the forefront and you have this problem and you're aware of it and you're chipping away at it little by little.
Totally. And yeah, it's a journey. So
I love it.
So what's been going on with you? You have like a new thing that you're trying, right?
Okay, right. So as people all know, I've got the pressure of my dad in assisted living with, a little bit of love triangle trauma and drama. And then I've got my autistic brother who calls me 2-3 times a day and doesn't have friends or a job or whatever. And I'm his sole, connection to life. And then I have cancer now at my home, which is very bad. He's very sick. He still is. And it's all it's all under this umbrella of COVID. And so it's just so many areas that I'm not in control of and that are sad and there's no end in sight. And it was driving me crazy. And cancer is what put it over the top. Terry's cancer is what put me over the top. And a few weeks ago, I was so down. And I came and I taught class and I complained through the whole class. Like I was really down. I shouldn't have even taught. I just was like, my life sucks. I don't understand why I deserve this. I don't understand why I can't catch a break. I this and that and da-da-da. And instead of feeling better at the end of class, I felt worse, because it just doesn't go anywhere, and what could have been a good opportunity, which is what I do have, is a great thriving business and the ability to teach a class and teach it well. Mm-hmm. I ruined it with all the complaints. And so I just realized, what? I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't want to wait. I was waiting for Grandpa to die to feel better.
Right. As most people who are taking care of their parents at the end of their life.
They're kind of hoping for that. Yeah.
Because it's a long process. It's a long, drawn out thing. So.
And then I was waiting for that to happen so I could move Steve out of the family home that has all the abuse and the history and all that. And then when COVID hit, I was just hoping it was going to be over in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 4 months, 8 months. I mean, it's just and waiting again. And then the same with cancer. And all of a sudden I realized the sadness with the cancer was so overwhelming that I was missing everything good in my day, everything good. And there's nothing I can do about any of these situations, but I can look at the good, and I have a lot of good. And I don't want to be all Pollyanna about it, but I just said to my class on Tuesday night, it was just a joke because we always joke around. I said, so guess what? I said, I have decided to be happy from this day until March. And I just said March.
I think you said the end of March at first, didn't you?
No, I said March.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah.
And then I walk in.
Yeah. And I just said, I've decided that I'm going to, because everyone's worried about the winter and the cold and the dark and the election and the holidays and a pandemic and the snow and all that. And I thought, no, my life is already, I mean, let's be honest, it's pretty stressful. I'm not going to let that stuff get to me. In fact, I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to be happy with that kind of stuff because, it's not a bad thing that it gets dark, and cold and that kind of thing. I mean, there's bigger things in life. So it was just a joke. And I said till March, because by March I said, March is the month that we change the clocks back. March is the month that spring starts.
It's the month that Katie was born.
And then Katie walks in right then and she goes, well, and it's the month I was born. And she goes, could you wait until after my birthday?
Well, because I didn't want you to be a negative Nancy on my birthday.
On her birthday. Because if I
naturally.
just decide to turn back to being negative March 1st, and then her birthday's March 3rd,
day,
that just sucks for her. So she said, can you wait till after my birthday? So I said, okay, done. I'm going to be happy until March 4th.
March 4th at midnight, right?
Right. Or March 3rd at midnight, right?
It would technically be March 3rd at 11:59.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
Okay. Anyway, and so then I thought, okay, that's funny. I'm just going to start saying that till March 4th. Well, it became this big joke then. It was like, okay, well, how many days do you have left of being happy? I'm like, I don't know. I should get one of those things where you can X off the calendar, because it's going to be really exhausting, And then I'd say, nope, I'm so happy. You guys are going to wish more tragedy on me. And they're like, that's not possible. And, stuff like that. And then somebody said, oh, it's such a gloomy day today. It makes me so down. I said, not me, because I'm happy. And it just is getting all carried away. But I'm finding, this is the point I'm trying to make, I'm finding that it's working.
Yeah.
I'm actually getting up and feeling hopeful and feeling cheerful for the first time since we got the cancers, what really sent me over the edge. I'm waking up and feeling lighter.
Sometimes you need
and grateful.
A form of rock bottom in a way.
Yeah.
To really want to change things around and everything. And I think with Terry and his cancer, that was just it was the last straw kind of thing.
It's about as bad of a situation as anybody can have, in their life, especially their spouse, and especially with as much tragedy as I've had and you and I have had.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to miss what's left with him. And I don't want to miss my other stuff because I'm sad. And I did write an email to my clients that talked about how I'm not afraid, and I'm not. And I think people, I really need the listeners and my people that saw that email to understand the difference. I am not afraid of Terry dying. I am not afraid of death anymore because Sandra helped with that, and I've been thinking about it a lot since Grandma died and now with Terry and just with my death, and I'm just not afraid. There's a big difference. I'm just very sad,
of course,
that it's going to end, but I'm not fearful that I won't be able to handle it, that I'll break down. I know that I'm a really strong person now, and I really can feel that from within. And I think that the podcast and the book helped with that because I've been talking about it, sharing, growing, and getting support and realizing, hey, I'm pretty strong. I got this, Yeah,
and I really like that you're just, despite all this stuff that's happening, you're just deciding to keep your emotions happy anyway,
as much as possible. Yep.
Right. Like, it's not going to be perfect. There's going to be times where it's probably not going to feel right to be happy. But the fact that you're consciously, like kind of what we were talking about with me, you're consciously trying to make it a different situation is, I think, incredibly important towards your mental health.
And they talk about caregivers getting sick too. And I feel like if I remain so unhappy,
stress, yeah.
I'm going to get sick too. And so today I saw my dad, and I saw him Thursday and Saturday, and I embraced it. I mean, I've literally been saying to people for 2-3 years now at least, like, when is he going to die? When is this going to be over? And I thought, I'm going to stop saying that. I'm going to embrace it, and I'm going to look for the good, and I'm going to be grateful that I have him for whatever, it's hard, and, it's a difficult conversation, and it's difficult to, get things through to him and whatever. But then, it's like, it is what it is. That's my life. So rather than hate it and do it, why not try to look for the good and at least accept it? The acceptance. Remember the God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. And I've got some serenity now.
It's interesting that we talked about that, because it does seem like you were trying to figure that out. You're trying to figure out how to get to the point of acceptance, and I think you're pretty close to it.
And remember, I said, and then I want the serenity. Like, I accept, but I also want some peace with that. This is my life right now. This is it.
Yeah.
And so maybe by talking about it on the podcast, remember, I had already felt better by the end of that.
Totally, yeah.
And that was only a couple weeks ago, and now it's been evolving. And all of a sudden, I just decided that this is okay. My life is okay. It's not a bad life.
No, definitely not. Yeah.
I got a lot.
So much. You have a lot on your plate, but you have a lot of people that care about you, and that's what really matters. Is when you care about people and they care about you.
That really is everything. And I do. I just feel so lifted up by so many people. You. As an Albrecht, you're like. I mean, you're the. Your mom and siblings are certainly there, but it's not the same. I've never had an Albrecht that really talks to me and gets it and understands and is real. I think your mom would if there were time and proximity, but
right. That's another factor. We live close to each other too, and so we run the podcast together and we see each other all the time, and
so that But it's nice having a real family member, not like an Albrecht, not even a Polachek.
Right,
like the Albrecht,
the branded Albrecht
with the scarlet A.
Scarlet A. Same thing as our logo, actually.
I know. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the Albrecht authors. Yeah,
but we're kind of branded, so there's that. But anyway, it's definitely, and I am making a commitment to you listeners. I'm going to have a blog out that's titled Happy Until March 4th. And what that means is that I have the license to start having temper tantrums again and throwing microphones and lashing out at my clients as of March 4th. But I may not. It's just meaning till March 4th, I'm making this effort.
Right, yeah, you're allowed to. The binding has been lifted
as of March 4th.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm giving up crabbiness, like for Lent.
It's a long Lent.
It's very long.
Especially for a non-Christian.
But I can do it.
Non-Christian, but you know what I mean? Not a
well, I don't know
Christian.
what I am. Yeah, I'm a non-everything. But yeah, I mean, I refuse to let this winter get me down. I refuse to let the darkness get me down. Of all the things really in life, this is no big deal. Having dark days, having gloomy days, having snow, having holidays where you can't be with, you know what? It's okay. We still have roofs over our head. We still have heat. We still have friendship. We still have food. It's like, I'm just not going to go there with it. I just, I'm going to allow other people to be there, but I'm just going to ignore it and just embrace what's good.
Definitely.
Now, if something really tragic happens to me this week, it might be a different tune next week. I might cancel the Happy Till March 4th. Like if I break my leg. Well, or something worse.
Nope, you got to be happy. You're bound to it.
I'm bound. It's contractual.
You're in the hospital as you get like a your leg fixed up or if it's broken or whatever, and then you're just, I'm great. I'm doing great.
You know, like I'm just happy. I'm just
living the dream.
This is a fantastic life.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, I do think the podcast helps, and I love sharing. And then I love getting the feedback from my peeps that, you know, great podcast again. That lifted me up. That was so perfect. It's just what I needed. It just means everything. You know, it's like what a gift. You know. Mm-hmm. So that's how I am. I think I went a little longer than you.
Well, that's what you usually do, so it's okay.
That's what makes me happy.
Did you guys know that Mary is kind of a talker?
What?
I mean, and it's a gift. It's a good thing to be able to use your words.
Well,
you know?
I mean, we're doing a podcast.
I feel like you should be good at talking.
They don't even see our faces, for God's sake, so we got to go with our voice.
Some of you don't even know what we look like, yeah. But yeah, we wanted to you know, talk about this kind of stuff because I think we've both seen progress in ourselves, and we've had hardships, we've had stuff going on, we've had stuff happen in our lives, but we are still making the most out of it.
We're still going, and we're not only going, we're improving. You know, we're growing, we're learning, we're maturing, we're evolving, we're helping others. I'm like, good Lord. We're amazing.
We're kind of awesome.
Okay. Terry always says to me, there's positive thinking, Mary, and then there's delusion. It's important to know the difference.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
You don't want to be unrealistic.
But getting to our topic, you ready?
Yeah, I think because we're going to do the reason why we wanted to talk about this first, that other stuff first, because we're not going to talk too much on this topic because we're doing more of it next week.
Right.
Correct. So we told you guys, I think in the last episode, that we wanted to hear your stories about family dinners. So we thought we would
when they were kids,
when you're growing up. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And we figured we would just start as like a prelude, I guess, talk about our family dinner experience, and then we'll hear from you guys next week.
Yeah, because it came up. I just started asking some clients that I was having FaceTime beers with, and that's our current era, but I'm so happy about it.
Gosh.
I'm
Do you
grateful.
Get the same kind of beer though, or is it different kinds of beers?
Different, because nobody brings me beer anymore because it's COVID. I have to get my own.
You have to get your own.
Yeah, but that's okay because I'm learning about other beers and stuff, so it's all good. I'm happy. I'm happy for FaceTime.
You're happy until March 4th.
Until March 4th. I'm going to keep saying it. You guys are going to be so sick of me. But anyway, I just started asking about their growing up dinner, like what they ate, what was it like, and then the wife as well. And I came up with a topic like, wouldn't it be interesting to just share with whoever wants to share what it was like for you growing up and how it shaped you when you had a family dinner, like things like, what were the standard foods? Were you allowed to be picky? Did you have to eat everything before you get your dessert? What were the manners? What were your, like, how do you pass dishes? Did you have to clean up afterwards? Yeah, exactly. What happens if you didn't eat all your food? You know, just so many different levels of habits that are formed, especially in my generation, because it was always pretty much a thing to have a sit-down dinner in my circle of people. Mm-hmm. That I think it matters, and it's definitely changed, and I think it's a neat topic. But we're gonna send out a questionnaire, Katie and I, mm-hmm. and whoever wants to answer the questions, we will read your answers on air next week, and then if we need to do more parts, we'll do another week. But we can, and you can be anonymous if you want. We can say this is a 57-year-old female, blah, blah, blah. Or if you want your name to be said, that's fine too, or your first name, but we'll have that in the questionnaire.
Definitely.
And I think it would be fascinating because there's whole books written on the psychology of dinners, of family, the whole psychology of eating together, socializing while eating.
That's a whole thing.
That's a whole thing.
And it's also, I think, from the beginning of humans, it's kind of what humans did together.
True. Yeah.
we've always shared meals with people.
That's true. You think about the cavemen sitting there with their big, club,
I was thinking, yeah, like a big drumstick,
big drumstick and blah, blah, blah.
Like before they even had fires or whatever. Yeah.
Oh, and no utensils.
No utensils. Everything's in their beard because they probably have one. Yeah.
Yeah, they have beards.
Yeah, they're supposedly very hairy creatures. But yeah, like humans, I mean, in every century that we've existed, we've always had dinners.
Yeah.
They've evolved, but
it's a big thing. Let's go out to dinner. Let's go have dinner for your birthday. Let's, I'll meet you for dinner. It's like, it's the thing, lunch as well, but dinner is the big one.
Yeah.
So for you, like,
yeah, should we share our dinner?
Did you guys, I mean, of course with Katie and me, it's going to involve Ken, both of them, but
we'll
try to keep it lighter.
Keep it light.
Lighter.
Yes, we had family dinners. We had, in our kitchen, we each had our own seat that we sat at.
Okay, and I'm going to write some of these things down because that's a good question, assigned seating. Assigned
seating, yeah.
Yeah.
Like we had our own seats, and if we ever messed up the seating order, oh my gosh, especially between me and Sarah, we would kind of fight about it. I remember I was always closest to the sink and also where we kept the napkins. And this is just like a small side note, but because this was my seat, we would sit down, everyone would sit down. And then after everyone sat down, my dad would be like, Katie, can you get some napkins? After we'd already sat down. I'm like, why did you do it when you were standing up by the sink?
Every time.
Every single time. And that was like, just a funny thing because my seat was the closest to it, and we weren't big on like manners. I think my mom wanted to instill more in us, but we never really got to that.
Okay.
Like we were the type of people that we would all eat at the same time. We would get called from the house. It'd be like my mom would call out dinner, and we would come down. I'd have to get the napkins after everyone sat down, and we would all eat like really fast. I remember we would kind of like shovel it in because if you didn't get seconds if you didn't eat fast.
Okay.
Because we were all such Neanderthal like people.
Dude, speaking of the caveman.
Right. Yeah. We were all very caveman like. And sometimes it was like my mom would put some like real effort into it and it would be like a really like delicious meal. Sometimes it was hamburger helper. Sometimes it was like baked chicken and vegetables, which as a kid I didn't like a whole lot. But yeah, we had a variety. If we had something casual like pizza, that was more of like in front of the TV type thing.
Which wasn't in your kitchen?
No.
Okay, so you would go sit in the living room or family room, right?
Yeah. Not really together either. So I think we kind of...
That would be a more of a dispersed kind of thing.
Yeah,
go watch what you want. Yeah. Did your mom set the table?
Yes.
Did she ask you guys to help set the table?
Yeah, we would have to do it. It wouldn't be like a formal, like there's multiple forks for God knows what reason. Like we wouldn't do that stuff. But we would have like one of us get the forks and the knives but we just put them on the table. We wouldn't set them in like
just put them there. Yeah,
we would just put them there.
Get them out there. Yeah.
We would usually use a lot of paper plates because I guess we broke a lot of stuff when we were kids. So we wouldn't have like glass plates or cups or anything like that.
Like so when you were younger, she just wanted to make sure you didn't break things.
Yeah, so we had paper or plastic cups and plates and stuff. There was usually stuff on the table as well. We'd have to kind of push it.
Yeah.
We've talked about clutter on this episode. We would have to push the stuff on the table to like the other corner of the table so that we could have enough room to place our plates and stuff.
Just push it over.
Yeah. And it was always a really big treat when my mom when we would have dessert. So we would have like little pudding cups. And those
she didn't have dessert all the time?
No.
Okay.
No, we would have we would have like these like yummy chocolate puddings, and those were in the fancy glasses.
Whoa.
For some reason. And but like nothing else would be. but we would have to kind of do the dishes first before we got dessert.
Did you have to eat all your food before you got dessert? Like what you took?
I got away with not eating all of the gross
The
food.
chicken and the vegetables.
Yeah, the stuff that I didn't like. But yeah, when I was younger, especially, not necessarily when I was in high school, but when I was like a kid, we would be told to eat, okay, eat 2 more bites and then you can have, or you can go, or then you can get up and stuff like that. And then we'd bring our plates to the sink. When we got older, it became, we just kind of knew, like, okay, us as kids should do more responsibility, help with dishes, like all that stuff. But like earlier on, it wasn't always enforced, I guess. So. And
then, did you talk? Did you have conversation, or were you too busy shoveling the food in?
It was a lot of shoveling the food in, but there was good memories around the kitchen table. We would talk about stuff. We would laugh about some things. Sometimes it was awkward because of my dad, because of who he was.
Because he might be crabby and just kind of fuming or
steaming.
Drunk.
He was drunk a lot at some of these.
Was he at the table most of the time when you were younger?
Yeah, when we all sat together, he was there.
Okay.
But he was in the far back corner, away from everything, which is where the napkins came from, So he made
Katie, can you get the napkins?
Can you get the napkins? Yeah. And he was kind of trapped in the corner, so like he couldn't actually get out. But I think he purposely put himself in the corner,
Did you ever notice how your dad cuts meat?
Go on, maybe.
He does it, I think is that European style or whatever, where you hold the fork in your left hand and the sharp knife or the knife in your right hand, or opposite, but you keep them together all the time. So you have the fork face down, and then you cut the food, and then you eat, off of that upside down fork. You don't ever set the knife down and then switch hands and then scoop it up.
That's what you're supposed to do, or that's what he was doing?
Well, I guess the American manners are such that you're supposed to cut it, set the knife down, and then switch over and scoop it up.
I've heard that too, but I don't know if I've ever done that.
Yeah, and this is, I think I have to research it, but my mom hated that he did that because she thought it was so Neanderthal.
Because he switched hands?
He didn't switch hands.
Oh.
That's a different story, but I just was curious if you picked up on that at all.
Well, no, I didn't, but I know that I also eat meat that way. I've vaguely heard that way.
And Steve does too.
I didn't switch hands. Do you switch hands when you are cutting meat?
Yes. Back in the day when I would eat that kind of thing, I would switch hands because that's what my mom wanted. Because it was like etiquette, Emily Post etiquette.
See, that's maybe why I didn't notice it, because I was also doing the same thing.
Because you're also doing it, yeah.
Yeah.
It actually makes more sense. It's faster, Why set the knife down and then pick it back?
Why drag it out longer than it has to be? We're aiming for seconds here. You got to speed up the process.
That's right. And then did you guys just reach for? Well, did your mom put like serving dishes on the table that you scooped out your own food, or was it like on a counter that you had to do like buffet style?
Well, we didn't really have counter space, so it was all on the table.
Either.
And it was like, hey, can you pass this? Hey, can you pass that? My dad would always, if I asked him to pass something, he would take some of it first and then pass it, that kind of thing.
Did he ever look over at your plate and say, are you going to eat all that?
No, but Sarah did.
Oh, that's funny.
I think she did anyway. She was like she was known as the garbage disposal growing up because she, like with her group of friends, because she was like this skinny thing, never gained any weight, but would eat so much.
It's so much.
Whereas I would eat a lot and gain all the weight. And so it's like, it was never fair.
Never fair. And then did she eat as much as Joe, a growing boy?
Close, but Joe ate, I think, a little bit more.
Just a little bit. That's a relief.
Yeah.
Actually.
I mean, yeah, we ate a lot. We'll say that. We ate a lot.
They did. I remember when you used to come to Grandma's and just go to the pantry and start, munching on things.
Immediately. That was, you beeline to the pantry. That's like the rule.
Yeah.
Or our rule.
What did you think of Alvina's dinners?
They were the best.
What about the manners and all of that? Like with
So
Like they would say prayers, right?
um,
Oh, did you say prayers?
we might have. I'm trying to remember. So Elvina is my great grandmother. It's Mary's grandma who has passed away years and years ago.
So my dad's mom, yeah.
Yeah. So she was like the best cook. Every
She
time we went
was
over there,
fantastic,
her food
yeah.
was so good. Even as like a little kid, which kids are more picky, like everything she made was fantastic. I think we did have to pray
Okay.
for that, and we always did. We never had a problem with it, even though we weren't super religious. But
You prayed at Alvina's, meaning
I think so.
great grandma, but not at your house?
No,
No. Okay.
no, we didn't pray at our house. Maybe for Christmas, my mom kind of pushed it, but other
Okay.
than that, no, we didn't pray.
Okay.
But yeah, our food was good. I think we had the same general manners, although I probably didn't eat as much. I tried to slow it down a little bit, even though it was like some of the best food I've ever tasted, kind of thing.
She was amazing. I even would stuff myself, and I had all those digestive problems, and I would go home with such a stomach ache, but it was worth it.
Yeah, it's totally worth it.
And always fresh and everything. How about with your with your family in your nucleus? Did you have a certain dress code?
At dinner?
Yeah.
No.
Did you have to be clean? Did you have to wash your hands before dinner? Were you allowed to wear a hat?
Oh, my dad wore hats all the time.
Did he wash his hands?
No.
Sorry.
And to be honest,
Just like,
I don't know if we did. I don't think we washed our hands every time.
yeah. And you know what? I think that's okay. I think that's what builds immune systems. Now, I'm not going to go crazy because I'm happy right now about immune systems and what we're doing to it in the current era. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. But
She's happy.
Because I'm happy that I'm so glad I get to be in a pandemic. So, but I think it's okay. I mean, unless they were dirty to the point where you couldn't pick up your food because it would stick. Otherwise, do we need to always wash our hands? But that's another thing. Wash your hands before you eat. Wash your hands after you eat. Now, obviously, you use napkins, right? Because we would say,
because I had to get the napkins all the time.
But do you remember Uncle Steve never uses napkins?
Oh, I don't remember that actually.
Okay, so let's go over my situation,
Let's
right?
go to your family.
Yes, which is
my dad in common, but
yes, and let me just say, so having my mom who was so into image and appropriate and manners, and she would talk about being uncouth, because she came from a blue collar family where they would eat that Neanderthal way, but they would probably were you ordered to keep your mouth closed while chewing? I'm going to write that one down.
Yes. Sometimes.
Okay, so my mom would talk about her dad and her brothers and everything, and they would just sort of eat that Neanderthal way with the fork turned down and keeping like the two utensils in the hands, and they would just eat and talk, and so they'd be talking and their mouth would be open while chewing, and they would just do that through the whole thing. They would burp at the table. Did you burp?
Probably.
Burp.
We weren't like a well-mannered family.
Right. So my mom, this is my mom's upbringing. And then one thing she hated was when her father would take the biscuit and wipe the plate. With like there was like gravy and butter left on it, and he would wipe the plate to get the rest of it on that biscuit.
What's wrong with
which
that?
Which is fantastic tasting. I love that.
Yeah, I don't see the problem.
Oh, she hated that. She thought it was
Grandpa used to do that?
No, Grandpa wasn't allowed to do that. No,
it was her father.
Her father, right?
Oh,
my
okay.
grandpa, yeah. It was so uncouth. Don't do that. It was so embarrassing to her. And if we did it in a restaurant, oh my God, it was so embarrassing. Okay, so we had Grandma, as we've talked about on this podcast.
That's a new one.
Very, very image conscious. And again, this is coming back to me as we talk because we're talking, right? It's good. And then we had Ken, who was the exact opposite, especially if we're talking about like the teenage years. Like let's say I was 12 and he was 14. So before, you could drive or whatever, he was already like bucking against the system, and he didn't want to have manners. He didn't want to clean up for the meal. My dad hated it when he wore any kind of hat, a baseball hat, anything clean, dirty, whatever.
He would do it anyway?
But he would do it, and there'd be a big fight, and finally he would take it off, but then his hair was all greasy, and he would throw it on the floor, and you could just tell it was always simmering. I don't really remember happy meals with your dad. But then you combine that with, I mean, it's really kind of a mess, because you combine that with the fact that when I was 12, Steve was 4.
Yeah.
And so my mom was trying to help him eat and get him, oh God, I was like, ooh,
Playing
Michael
footsie
Myers.
It's the season.
It's the season. I got a little jumpy. So my mom was trying to like dish stuff up for Steve and like help cut his food up and whatever.
She was kind of distracted, had her hands full, kind
right.
of thing.
And then my dad was all about, he didn't want to talk. He just wanted to eat. Like, you just sit and eat.
Which carry on until when I ate with him too, because
right.
he didn't really say much.
Yeah, he just sits down and eats. But back in the day when he had his career and all that, he would eat and leave. So then it would be, because he would eat in 5 minutes and leave. He wouldn't talk to us. It wasn't like, how was your day or anything like that. So my mom hadn't even started her meal. Ken had already thrown his hat on the floor and was all in a angry mood kind of thing. My mom was, helping Steve. My dad was ordering us around enough in the 5 minutes to matter and then leave. And then I eventually would just be sitting there with my mom and Steve, because Ken would leave too. And
did he leave his plate?
He left his plate. He never took his plate to the counter. And Steve was 4 at the time, but even when Steve got older, he wasn't taught that. I don't know why my mom didn't teach that, which is funny because I actually ended up doing all of the dishes almost every night, because my mom would want me to keep her company, and she hadn't eaten yet, and she'd be like, oh, please don't you leave me too, kind of thing. And so rather than just sit there, I did the dishes because I'm a doer. That's how I always was. And so it kind of became a thing where I was always sort of doing like the slave labor, and the men would all leave. I mean, again, Steve was 4, 6, 8, whatever.
But he did that as an adult too.
But he did it, he didn't learn. So yeah,
it.
so family dinners were actually miserable, and I there really wasn't anything fun.
Were they mandatory every night, or were you able to like go to a friend's house for dinner, or were you able to just not join one night? Or...
You couldn't not join.
Even if you were at a friend's house?
But you could go to a friend's house, but you couldn't be like in the
house.
Because my mom wanted to put on that show that we're a happy family kind of thing.
Yeah, you guys got the big picture window right by the kitchen table too. Yeah.
Yeah, and then she would be so sad because there was never really any good conversation. I mean, sometimes we would joke around a little bit if your dad was in a good mood, but it was pretty bad. I think that you guys there were enough good positive forces between you and your siblings and your mom to sort of overshadow your dad sometimes, or most of the time.
Well, that was the good parts. Yeah, I don't think we had moments with him, but
it
mostly,
wasn't. Yeah,
it was the 4 of us.
And so I had my mom who was all frustrated about the manners. Oh, and we always had to pass to the left. Do you remember that?
I've heard of that. Yeah, I think we've had to do that
at holidays,
at
right?
Holidays, yeah. That got lost at our house because after a while there is no left because we're up against the wall. You know what I mean? Like we wouldn't be able to do that because then my dad would be passing to me, but then it's like reaching across the long way of the table. So like it wouldn't have worked.
No reaching across. And definitely when I always set the table, and it would have to be fork on the left, knife, and then spoon, and put the napkin underneath the fork.
The formal.
Yeah, and
setting.
then sometimes we would have the big fork and then the salad fork if we were having salad. That kind of thing. But yeah, it was very, and occasionally I would get little, rambunctious as a kid or whatever, and my mom would just get so, Mary, mind your manners kind of thing. But it wasn't in a good way.
Yeah.
It was more because she was embarrassed. Like she didn't want to repeat what she grew up with. She just thought it was so uncouth. That's the word, uncouth. She hated her uncouth upbringing.
I wonder if like generations flip-flop like that. So a generation that grew up in a crazy kind of wild upbringing wants to be more polished, and then the people that grow up in the polished upbringing want to be more like wild and crazy. I wonder if it
Maybe.
like switches off sometimes.
Maybe, or if they have willing partners, they repeat, what they grew up with, which is again why I want to
True.
do this, because I want to also talk about how it shaped you. Like one of the questions that I want for the clients is, how do you think family dinners shaped you going forward with your relationship with food and just sort of your security, your good memories or whatever? Do you have anything to say about that? Did it shape you any certain way, or was it just...
I think the amount of food that we used to eat, I learned that I really shouldn't be eating that much.
They never brought that up, huh?
Well, it's one of those
kid,
Yeah, and we were in sports. We were always like active.
Yeah, really
So
hungry.
we actually, for how much calories and stuff we were burning, we weren't eating an outrageous amount compared to, like ratio wise or whatever. But at the same time, I took that into my early 20s and was like overeating, and I gained a lot of weight from it when I wasn't, working out as much or exercising as much. And I had to learn to limit that a little bit.
And you've done a really good job with that, because I remember before we had broken neck and you moved down here and all of that, when you would come around here and there, the one time I took you to Wildberry and I put you in a food coma.
Well, okay. So during that point in my life, I just recently got diagnosed with ADD, so I was like on Ritalin.
Okay.
And that's a stimulant that suppresses your stimulant or your appetite.
Suppresses? Oh yeah, because it's a stimulant.
But then I went off of it for a day after I had been on it for a few months at that point, and that was the day that we went to Wildberry.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, so then I went off it, and it was like a complete 180. I was like ravenous because my appetite had been so suppressed for so long.
Oh, I didn't know that part. I think you did mention that now that you're saying it again, but I forgot.
So that wasn't like totally normal, but but at the same time, I ate so much. Okay, so these omelets at Wildberry are probably like the size of a football.
Yeah.
Or like half of a football. I had that. I had the rest of your salad. I think I had pancakes. And then there was like one other thing.
You had a juice and then dessert.
And I could still keep going. Like it was.
Oh my gosh.
It was so much. Honestly, that was a ridiculous amount of food. And it had a lot to do with the coming off of the drug, but also because I just never learned limits growing up.
Sure. And that was really good food too.
Oh yeah, the best.
And then I remember, because you came back to the loft and you took a nap, but then you went to see Grandma and Grandpa. And I remember the next day, Grandma's like, well, she just laid on the couch. She didn't say much.
Well, when you eat an absurd amount of food like that, you're going to be like knocked out for the rest of the day,
Oh, and let me just say too that my dad was always picking on my mom about everything she ate. So when he would stick around and she would start to eat and then she would take seconds, he would be like, you don't need seconds. You don't need that. You don't need, so he was so the relationship with food was very negative. And, he would sometimes, if I would eat seconds, he'd say, be careful, you're going to get fat like your mom. Very bad messages.
Wow.
Yeah, we're trying to keep it light, but I'm happy until March 4th.
We're light, man. We're cool. We're happy.
But anyway, so it shaped you in that you learned how to not gorge.
Yeah, that helped. I'm sure there's other stuff too.
And now what's your habits right now with dinners in your current life?
I live with
a chef.
With a chef, which is exactly as great as it sounds. So Matt makes really delicious meals. He doesn't make it every night, but when he does, we'll eat I'll eat a full portion. I'll sometimes have seconds. I haven't fully gone away from like eating a lot, but most of the time I eat until I start to feel a little full, and then if I feel a little full, I know that I'm probably more full than I actually am.
Yes, that's a good
that's usually like
physical principle. Yeah,
that's usually like the sign of when to stop. Like whereas before I would get to that point and push past it, and further and further, like it just, you keep expanding it and it's not necessarily good.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just the two of us. So
Do
when
you
we
sit
have
at a
dinners,
table when you sometimes, or do you just sit in front of the TV next to each other?
we do both. So
Yeah.
if it's a kind of meal that we can sit in front of the TV, like if he makes like a stir fry that we put in a bowl, we'll do that probably. Well, we've done it both. If there's something we want to watch, we'll watch it in front of the TV, or we'll sit at our little island. But when he makes like fancy meals, because he is a chef, he will sit at the our little island and have a glass of wine, and it'll be like a whole fancy thing. We'll have the silverware set up. He sets the table. He's really great
Because he's a culinary expert.
He's a culinary person. He's worked in restaurants. Like he sets the whole thing.
Who cleans up then?
I've done it a few times, but he insists on cleaning it.
He really.
The kitchen is his spot.
I was going to say, he has said, this is my kitchen.
That's his turf,
Which is fine, I think, right? Why, why not?
I think a lot of ladies in particular would kill for that, right?
Oh my gosh, so many of my clients, I've mentioned Matt to them, and they're like, I need a Matt.
I mean, he's really, really great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate that aspect a lot,
Does he do all the grocery shopping?
Yep, that's another thing. He has full, pretty much control of the kitchen. I'll cook for myself sometimes. When you're a chef, you get kind of like picky, so he doesn't.
Right, he doesn't necessarily want what you make.
He just likes what he makes, and that's fine because he does all this other stuff too. So yeah, I'll make requests for groceries, but he does the shopping. So
nice, yeah, and. Yeah, for me, I mean, I never had a really good relationship with food, and I think it was because I was born with digestive problems, and then you combine that with the stress of the family dinners, and then later in life, I just kind of skipped dinners and stuff. But then when I met Terry, we used to go to dinner like every Saturday night, and he was the cook too, and he's
a good cook too.
He's a very good cook, but he's not he's not like licensed or whatever, as
like self-trained,
but he doesn't like doing dishes. So every time he would cook, I'd be like, oh shoot, now I got a lot to clean up. Because he's one of the cooks, I don't know how Matt is, but he's one of these cooks that he likes to just be in the moment. He doesn't like to clean up as he goes. So he'll be tossing things around. He'll have like sticky stuff on his hands, and he'll grab the drawer handle and open it, and then there's sticky stuff on the handle. And it's like living with a toddler. And so but that's not anything I've ever been able to change. And now I realize that it's not necessary because he likes it so much,
Yeah, it brings him joy.
But now in the latest era, since getting so many obstructions and all of that, I just don't eat anymore. I mean, I eat, don't get me wrong. I don't eat dinner too much. Like, I don't eat a big dinner. Like, I do munch a little bit at night, but I eat my main meal at lunch and breakfast. So it's sort of taken away from any time that Terry and I have together. And it's kind of a sad thing in that way. But I also have the kind of business where it's mostly early mornings and evenings for classes and clients. So I'm usually
which is where you need your energy.
Yeah, exactly. So I can't necessarily. So yeah, but now with the cancer, he doesn't make anything anymore. And I kind of long for the days when I would complain about the sticky handle, because he doesn't eat anymore.
Aww.
He just drinks Ensure and maybe eats a yogurt, but he's not up for cooking anything. And so, careful what you wish for. I'd come home and the kitchen's empty. He usually would be in it cooking something or watching TV or smoking a cigar. Nope, he's upstairs in bed. So it's sad.
I mean, it's sad, but it's also really endearing to hear that.
Yeah, and again,
it's kind of a sweet thing that comes out of it,
Right. And so here's again the happy till March 4th, and that, gosh, I needed this lesson. Rather than 30 years of complaining about Terry's, sticky, handles, now I would kill for that. So there's the lesson, right?
Yeah.
And I'm glad I got it
that.
while he's still alive, because there, hopefully it will still be time when he's down cooking and I'll be happy as opposed to stressed.
Yeah, totally.
Even after March 4th.
Even after March 4th. No, I think that's a really sweet thing to recognize in your life partner, that, like, because you hear stories like that of your life partner passing away, and I mean, he's not passed away, but
it's on my mind, yeah.
But the things that annoyed you about that person, you all of a sudden miss, and like you are realizing it before he even passed away.
What a gift, which was the email I sent, that I'm celebrating his life before he's gone. That's a gift. It really is.
It is.
I've
said this before. I don't know if on the podcast or not, but cancer sucks, but there's beauty in it because you get kind of a timeline, and you if you use it right, you have the opportunity to say the things you need to say.
Yes, you get a bit of a warning, even if it's a little bit of a warning. It's still better than like getting a knock on the door and the person's gone.
And just like, out of the blue, and then with unfinished business. I mean,
that's different and harder in different ways. But I actually would prefer it this way than getting a knock on the door that Terry got
like
run over and got, because then you may have,
or died of a heart attack, or or something like that, where it's just
I feel like, I mean, he gets kind of crabby because he's sick, but I really am, like with my dad, with my dad only since last Tuesday, but with Terry, since this whole thing, I'm like really embracing him and like being kind and appreciating him, so I'm glad, I'm grateful. That's what I mean about a gift, so, it's sad and poignant, but also happy. And so, it's all of the above, but it gives you that chance.
It does. Yeah.
And you don't really feel it the way you feel it until you get a terminal diagnosis. I mean, this is about as terminal as it gets. So, it's there. I see it, it's happening, but it's not over yet. So
yeah, there's still time for appreciating and everything. With the rest of like the dinners, so maybe not you're growing up, or your family dinners growing up. How you were saying you were doing washing the dishes a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You also carried that into your adult life, didn't you? Or you are the one that's like kind of what you're saying with Terry. You were the one that was like doing the dishes and cleaning up and everything.
Yep.
Did you see that kind of? Did you think that came from your childhood?
Yeah, and I think that led to my OCD, because family dinners typically were some kind of fight. And so the dishes were something I could control. And so flash forward or fast forward or flash to the future, whatever, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
That if things were really out of control and Terry was cooking and everything was just like stressful because people were around or like a holiday or whatever, doing the dishes was something I could control. And it helped me. But people would make fun of me because you don't need to do the dishes right now. Try to enjoy the company, but I would be like obsessively trying to do the dishes. And that's what has changed now with Terry, being sick. I don't feel that way about the kitchen anymore. Like I just, if he is down there and makes a little bit of a mess, I'm happy. So you never know, right? What lessons you're going to get. Yeah.
It's interesting.
But I remember, I think I even put it in Broken Neck, that when he would scream, I would do the dishes. When he would yell in the night, I would get up and clean my closet. Like it was something I could do, to control the situation. So
and doing the dishes was part of it.
Yeah. So I'm really interested to hear of everybody's...
Hear people's responses to this.
Yeah. And so I've got a nice list here that I developed before the podcast and during.
Yeah.
And I'm going to send it out, and I'll send it... I'll send it out to you, and then you send it to who you want to. And
yeah, so look out for that. It'll be coming before It'll be coming in very soon.
Yeah, I'm gonna try.
Probably already sent out before this episode airs.
Oh,
so,
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I forgot about that.
There'll be
Yeah.
a little bit, but there'll be some time after this episode airs. If you would like to be a part of it, just reach out to us and let us know, and we'd be happy to share your story on here.
Yeah, that'll be fun. I like this interactive stuff. We got more ideas to come.
Totally.
So,
Yeah.
to get through the winter that we're all happy about.
I'm so happy about winter. Yay.
It works, guys. Try it.
Well, I think we can wrap it up.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see you guys in the next episode where we read a little bit more of your stories, and we hope to hear from you.
Till next time.
Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.